The city was broken. Tall towers once touched the clouds, but now they were only sharp bones of metal. The streets were quiet, too quiet, as if the whole place was holding its breath. The war had ended long ago, but the ruin still carried the smell of smoke, rust, and fear. In the middle of this dead city, a small figure moved. She was thin, weak, and her clothes were torn rags. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the dark, and her eyes were not like human eyes. They were larger, brighter, made for a different world. She was not human. She was the last of her kind, or at least that was what she believed. The alien girl lived in the shadows. She never came out during the day. When the sun rose, she hid in broken houses under cold stone, inside holes where rats lived. At night, she searched for food. She ate scraps left by humans, rotten bread, cold pieces of meat thrown away. Sometimes she drank from dirty rainwater. Her stomach was always empty and her throat always dry. But she lived. Every step she took was dangerous. Humans ruled this city now. Soldiers in black armor walked the streets. Drones floated above, watching everything. They called her kind vermin. If they ever found her, they would shoot without asking questions. She had seen it before. Others of her kind hunted, captured, burned. She still remembered the screams. And yet, she survived. Her nights were long, her body shaking with hunger. She wrapped herself in broken cloth and whispered to herself in her own language, words of comfort that no one else could understand. She missed her mother's voice. She missed her people's songs. But there was only silence now. This night was colder than the others. The wind moved through the ruins like a ghost carrying dust and ashes. She walked barefoot across sharp stones. She looked for something, anything to eat. A trash bin stood near the old market. Carefully she pushed it, her thin fingers searching inside. Rotten fruit, a broken tin, bones. She licked the bones even though there was no meat left. Her stomach twisted with pain. Then she heard it. Footsteps. She froze. Her heart raced. The sound was close, too close. Heavy boots, steady, walking on broken ground. She dropped the bone and ran into the shadows. Her back pressed against the cold wall. She held her breath. The footsteps stopped. A soldier? A hunter? Her hands shook. She looked around for a place to hide, but the wall behind her was solid, and the street ahead was empty. If someone came now, she had no escape. The sound grew louder. Someone was near the market. She saw a shadow fall across the stones. She closed her eyes, praying, waiting for the end. But then, something strange happened. The voice was not hard, not cold, not like the soldiers. It was soft, young, human, but not cruel. "Are you hungry?" The alien girl opened her eyes slowly. In front of her stood a boy. He was no soldier. His clothes were simple, dirty like hers. His face was thin, but his eyes did not look at her like she was an animal. He looked at her like she was someone. He held a piece of bread in his hand. It was not much. It was old and small. But to her it looked like treasure. Her body shook harder. Was this a trap? Humans never helped her. Humans hated her. This boy could be calling soldiers right now. Maybe he only wanted her to step into the light so they could shoot. She hissed, pulling back into the dark. The boy did not move. He kept standing, his hand stretched out. The bread was still there. "You don't have to hide," he whispered. His voice was almost afraid, like he knew how dangerous this was for both of them. "I won't hurt you." The alien girl did not trust him. She could not. But her hunger screamed louder than her fear. Slowly, step by step, she moved closer. Her bare feet touched the cold stones. Her glowing eyes never left his hand. She snatched the bread quickly like a wild animal and jumped back into the shadows. She pressed the bread to her lips. The taste was dry, hard, but to her it was the sweetest thing she had eaten in weeks. The boy watched her. For a moment there was silence. Then he smiled. "You don't belong in the dark," he said softly. Her chest tightened. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that before. Not since the war. Not since her family. And then the sound returned. Distant shouts, metal boots, soldiers coming closer. The boy's face changed. His eyes widened. He looked at her, then at the street, then back at her again. "If they see you, they'll kill you," he whispered. "Follow me." The alien girl froze once more. She wanted to run away, to hide. But something inside her told her to listen. The soldiers' voices grew louder. The night was no longer safe. The boy reached out his hand. She stared at it. A human hand. The same hands that had destroyed her world. The same hands that had left her to starve. But this one was different. Her own hand, trembling, lifted from the shadows. For the first time in years, she touched a human hand, and the night changed forever. The night was heavy with silence, but the silence was not safe. The alien girl's hand rested in his, small and trembling. For a moment, the ruined city disappeared. There was no war, no soldiers, no hunger. Only two shadows in the dark, an alien child and a human boy. But reality returned fast. The sound of boots echoed down the street. Soldiers were near, their voices sharp, their flashlights cutting through the night. The boy's hand tightened around hers. "Come with me, now." The alien girl's first thought was to pull away, to run back into the darkness where she had always survived. But something about the boy's voice made her pause. It was not the voice of a soldier. It carried fear, yes, but also courage. He pulled her gently, guiding her away from the open street. They slipped into a narrow alley, hidden between two broken walls. The boy crouched low, his breath shallow. He motioned for her to stay quiet. The alien girl pressed herself against the stone. Her heart hammered. She could hear the soldiers. "Search this area. Tracks lead here. She has to be close." The girl's eyes filled with panic. If they were caught, there would be no mercy. She looked at the boy. He was shaking too, but his eyes were firm. He put a finger to his lips. Silence. The soldiers passed slowly. Boots crushed broken glass. Lights flashed across the walls. The girl held her breath until her chest burned. The boy did not move. He was still as a stone. Finally, the voices faded. The boots grew distant. The danger moved on. The boy let out a long breath. He turned to her. "We can't stay here. Follow me," she hesitated. Trust was not easy. Her kind had trusted once, and the war had destroyed them. But this boy had just risked his life for her. He could have shouted for soldiers. Instead, he had pulled her deeper into the shadows. Her hunger spoke louder than her fear. She nodded just once. The boy led her through twisting paths, past broken shops, burned houses, and walls filled with bullet holes. The city was his map. He moved quickly, as if he had walked these ruins 1,000 times. The girl followed, silent, her glowing eyes watching every corner. At last, they reached a half-collapsed building. The door was gone, the roof broken. But inside was a hidden corner covered with old blankets and tools. It was small, dirty, but safe. "This is my place," the boy whispered. "No one comes here. You can hide." The alien girl stood still. The room was warmer than the street. For the first time in months, she was not running. The boy pulled something from under the blankets, a small tin box. He opened it and showed her. Inside were scraps of food, hard bread, dried fruit, a piece of cheese. Not much, but to her it looked like a feast. "Here," he said, pushing it toward her. Her throat tightened. No one had ever shared food with her since the war. Not a single human. She grabbed the bread, biting quickly. Crumbs fell, but she did not care. Her body shook with each bite. The boy smiled faintly. "Slow down. There's more," she froze. More for her? This was impossible. Her eyes narrowed. She stared at him. "Why?" Her voice was rough, weak. Her language was broken, but he understood. The boy looked at the ground. For a long moment, he did not speak. Then he lifted his eyes. "Because you're not a monster." The word struck her. Monsters. That was what the soldiers called her people. That was what humans shouted when they burned her village. But this boy had said the opposite. She swallowed hard. She did not know how to answer. He sat down across from her, hugging his knees. "I've seen soldiers kill. I've seen them take people who never fought back. I hate them. I hate what they do, but you're just trying to live. Like me." The alien girl studied him. His face was thin, his eyes tired, but his voice carried a strange warmth. A warmth she had almost forgotten. "You don't belong in the dark," he said again, softer this time. "No one does." Her chest ached. For a moment she almost felt tears rise, but she pushed them back. She had promised herself never to cry again. The boy noticed her silence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a broken locket. He opened it. Inside was a picture of a woman. "My mother," he said quietly. "The soldiers took her too. I never saw her again." The alien girl looked at the picture. She did not understand humans well, but she understood loss. She lowered her head. For the first time, she did not feel alone. The night grew colder. Outside, soldiers shouted in the distance. Drones hummed above the city. But inside the broken building, something fragile was beginning to grow. Two lost children, one human, one alien. Both hunted. Both alone. But now together. The boy looked at her and smiled. "You're safe here. I promise." The alien girl clutched the bread to her chest. She did not know if she could believe in promises anymore. But for the first time in years she wanted to. And outside in the darkness, the Empire kept searching. The days that followed were not easy. The alien girl stayed hidden in the broken workshop the boy called his shelter. The place smelled of rust and oil, with tools scattered across the floor. A cracked window let in a small beam of sunlight during the day, but she never stepped into it. She stayed in the shadows, afraid the light might call the soldiers to her. The boy brought scraps of food each night. Sometimes old bread, sometimes stolen fruit, sometimes pieces of meat he risked taking from the market. He was thin, always hungry, yet he shared. She watched him carefully, never fully trusting, but little by little her fear began to soften. One evening, the boy sat beside her, holding a candle. The flame danced on the walls, making the shadows move like ghosts. He placed a small piece of bread in front of her, then leaned back. "You don't speak much," he said. The alien girl stared at the bread. Her voice was rough, her words broken. "Don't know your words." The boy tilted his head. "But you're learning," she nodded slowly. Every day she listened. She repeated the words he used. Water, food, hide, run, safe. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but the boy smiled every time she tried. "Do you have a name?" he asked one night. Her chest tightened. Her name belonged to her family, her people. Saying it felt dangerous, like opening an old wound. She looked away. The boy did not push. Instead, he touched the locket around his neck. "My mother used to tell me stories. About princesses." The alien girl's eyes lifted. "Princesses lived in tall towers," he continued, "and wore crowns that shined like stars. But my mother said being a princess wasn't about gold or dresses. It was about how people saw you, how they believed in you." He looked at her carefully. His eyes were serious now, not playful. "To me, you are like one." Her breath caught. Princess. The word was strange on her ears, yet it pulled something deep inside her chest. Once, long ago, she had worn bright clothes, sat beside her mother in halls filled with music. Once she had been told she was the daughter of a great line. But those days had burned in fire and screams. She had buried them in the dark. Now this boy, a human, spoke the word again. She whispered, almost too soft to hear. "Princess." "No, nothing." The boy shook his head. "Not to me." Silence filled the workshop. Outside, the city groaned with wind. Inside, two children sat in the glow of a candle, one holding memories, the other holding hope. But the peace did not last. The next night, a sound cut through the air. A low hum, steady, metallic. The alien girl stiffened. She knew that sound, drones. The boy rushed to the window. A dark shape floated in the sky, its red light sweeping the ruins like a hunter's eye. "They're searching," the boy whispered. The girl's blood ran cold. They were not just patrolling. They were looking for her. She pulled the ragged blanket around herself, shaking. The drone passed once, twice, then slowed near their building. The boy grabbed her hand. "Hide!" He pulled her behind a pile of old crates. The drone's red light spilled through the window, sliding across the floor, almost touching their feet. The girl covered her mouth to silence her breathing. The boy pressed close, his arm around her, his body shielding hers. For a long moment they did not move. Only the drone moved, humming, watching. Finally the light drifted away. The hum faded. The danger passed. The boy let out a breath he had been holding. "They know you're here," he whispered. "They're looking for you. Not just any alien, you." The girl's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, but the truth burned in her mind. She was not just another survivor. She was the last child of her royal bloodline. Her mother had whispered it before the soldiers came. "You must live. You are our last hope." But hope had felt useless in the dark. Until now, she looked at the boy. His face was pale in the candlelight, but his eyes were full of fire. "You're not safe here anymore," he said firmly. "We have to move." The girl's lips trembled. She wanted to stay hidden, to remain unseen, but the word still echoed in her ears. Princess. The boy had called her one. And maybe for the first time since the war, she wanted to believe it. The night outside was dangerous. The soldiers were searching. The drones were hunting. But inside the broken workshop, something stronger was awakening. An unspoken bond, a spark of trust, and a secret too powerful to stay hidden. The girl pressed her hand against the boy's arm. Her voice shook, but the words came clear. "Don't. Leave me." The boy looked at her surprised. Then he nodded, steady and sure. "Never." And in that moment, under the ruins of a broken city, a promise was made. A promise that would change everything. The city never slept, but it did not dream either. The streets were filled with broken machines, burned cars, and walls painted with old war marks. In the sky, the red eyes of drones searched, circling like vultures waiting for death. Inside the workshop, the boy paced back and forth. His hands shook as he spoke. "They know. The drones don't stop like that unless they've found something. They're hunting you." The alien girl sat in the corner, clutching the blanket around her. Her glowing eyes followed him, full of fear. She wanted to stay, to hide forever. But deep inside, she knew hiding would not save her now. The boy stopped. He looked at her, his jaw tight. "Tell me the truth. Why are they after you? You're not just another refugee." Her chest tightened. The words rose in her throat, heavy like stone. For so long she had buried them. For so long silence was safer. But the boy's eyes, burning, waiting, pulled the truth from her. Last what?" He pressed, her lips trembled. "Last. Blood. Last. Daughter." The boy froze. The candle between them flickered. Slowly, the truth unfolded in broken words. Her people were almost gone, destroyed by the Empire's war. She was the last child of a royal line. A princess, though she never felt like one. To the soldiers, she was not just an alien, she was a threat. If she lived, her people's hope lived. That was why they hunted her. The boy's heart pounded. He stared at her with new eyes. Not as a starving girl, not as a shadow in the ruins, but as something far greater. "You are a princess," he whispered. The word no longer sounded like a story. It sounded like truth. Before the girl could answer, the silence shattered. Boom! The door crashed open. Soldiers in black armor stormed inside. Their helmets glowed with red lights, rifles raised. The boy grabbed her hand without thinking. "Run!" The workshop exploded with noise. Bullets ripped through metal, sparks flying. The girl stumbled as the boy dragged her through the back exit. They raced into the night, hearts pounding, breath tearing from their lungs. The city became a maze of shadows and fire. Soldiers shouted behind them. Drones circled above, red lights sweeping the alleys. "Faster!" the boy urged, pulling her down a narrow path between broken walls. Her legs shook, her feet raw from the stones, but she ran. She had no choice. Bullets struck the wall beside her, showering her with dust. She gasped, stumbling. The boy caught her, lifting her up. "Don't stop!" They darted through the ruins, turning corners, slipping through cracks only children could fit through. The boy knew every street, every tunnel, every broken place the soldiers avoided. But the soldiers were not fools. They followed, closer and closer. At last, the boy pulled her into a collapsed tunnel. It smelled of damp earth and mold. He pushed her inside, covering the entrance with debris. They crouched in the dark, holding their breath. Boots thundered above. Soldiers shouted orders. A drone hovered near the tunnel mouth, its red eye glowing. The alien girl pressed herself against the wall, trembling. The boy wrapped an arm around her, trying to keep her still. The drone paused. Its light swept across the rubble. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Then, silence. The hum faded. The boots grew distant. The danger passed. For now, the boy let out a long, shaky breath. He turned to her. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead. "They won't stop. Not until you're dead." The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to cry, but her tears were dry. She looked at him, her voice a whisper. "Why, help me?"
He met her eyes.
His answer came without hesitation. "Because you're all that's left. If they take you, then the Empire wins forever. But if you live..." He swallowed, his voice fierce. "If you live, there's hope. And I won't let them take that." Her chest ached. No human had ever spoken of her life as something worth saving. Yet here was this boy, poor and thin, risking everything. For her, the tunnel grew cold around them. Dust fell from above. The city groaned like an old beast. But in the darkness, two children held on to each other like the last light in a world of shadows. The boy leaned closer, whispering, "We can't stay here. Tomorrow we move. I'll get you out of this city. Somewhere safe." The girl shook her head. "No safe, nowhere. He placed his hand on hers. Then we make one. She stared at him. His hand was rough, his voice trembling with fear, yet his words burned with something stronger. For the first time since her world was destroyed, she believed, just for a moment, that maybe survival was not the end. Maybe there was more. Above them, the drones circled. The soldiers searched. The city waited. The chase was not over. It had only just begun. The night faded into gray morning. The city was still broken, but in daylight it looked different, emptier, harsher. The alien girl sat in the tunnel, hugging her knees, her glowing eyes dim with exhaustion. The boy was beside her, whispering a plan. They'll search every street. We can't move in daylight, we wait. Tonight we'll go to the old train yard. There are tunnels under it. We can slip out of the city. The girl listened. His words felt like a rope thrown to someone drowning. Still fear pressed against her chest. They find us, she whispered. The boy shook his head firmly. Not if we move smart. Trust me. That word again, trust. She looked at him. His face was tired, his lips cracked from hunger, but his eyes, they carried something she had never seen in a human before. A light that refused to die. The hours passed slowly. Soldiers' voices echoed above the tunnel. Boots stomped, drones hummed, metal clashed against stone. The girl and boy stayed still, breathing shallow. When the noise faded, the boy finally pulled a piece of dried fruit from his pocket. Here, he said, handing it to her. She shook her head. You eat. He pressed it into her hand. You need it more. Her throat tightened. She had eaten his food before, but this time was different. She saw how thin he was, how hungry his eyes looked. He was starving too. Yet he gave everything to her. Her lips trembled. Slowly, she broke the fruit in two. She pushed half back into his hand. The boy blinked, surprised. Then for the first time, he laughed. It was a small sound, broken and rough, but it carried warmth in the cold tunnel. The girl felt something strange in her chest. Not hunger, not fear, something gentler. Something she had not felt since her family was alive. They shared the fruit in silence. When night came, they moved. The boy led her through alleys, always listening, always watching. The city was alive with danger. Posters of aliens marked the walls. Enemies of the Empire report on sight. Soldiers stood at checkpoints, scanning faces. Drones swept every corner. The girl kept her hood low, her glowing eyes hidden. Her heart pounded with every step. If anyone looked too closely, they would see. At one street, they nearly walked into a patrol. The boy pulled her against the wall, pressing her into the shadows. The soldier's light passed inches from her face. She shut her eyes, holding her breath. His hand rested on hers, steady, strong. The patrol moved on. She opened her eyes. His face was close, too close, and she saw his fear matched hers. Yet he did not let go. They continued until they reached the old train yard. Rusted tracks cut across cracked stone. Broken carriages stood like silent giants. The boy led her under one of the carriages where a hole gaped into a forgotten tunnel below. This way, he whispered. They climbed down into the dark. The air smelled of damp earth and oil. Rats scurried past. The girl shivered, but the boy moved forward with steady steps. As they walked, the tunnel opened into a large chamber, half collapsed, filled with broken machines. They rested there. The boy sat, breathing hard. The girl sat across from him, studying his face in the dim light. She wanted to speak, but words were heavy. Finally, she whispered, "Why risk all? You die. For me." He looked at her. His jaw tightened. "Maybe, but if I do nothing, you die alone." "I can't let that happen." She shook her head. "I'm not important." "Yes, you are," he said, his voice sharp. "You're the last of your people. You carry their hope. If you die, their story ends. But if you live..." His eyes softened. "If you live, maybe the story changes. Maybe the Empire doesn't win." Her eyes burned. She had told herself she was only a shadow, a scrap-eater in the dark. But now this boy looked at her and saw more. Saw something worth protecting. "You call me Princess," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Because you are." Silence fell, heavy and warm. For a moment she believed him, but the moment broke with a sound. Clang. Metal boots. Voices echoing in the tunnel. Soldiers. The boy's face turned pale. He grabbed her hand. "They've tracked us." The girl's chest filled with ice. She wanted to scream, to run, but his grip steadied her. "We'll fight if we must," he whispered fiercely. Her eyes widened. "Fight? We die." He shook his head. "Then we die standing." The soldiers' lights glowed at the end of the tunnel, sweeping closer. The sound of rifles being loaded echoed like thunder. The girl's breath shook. The boy's hand tightened around hers. Fear pressed against them, heavy and merciless. But between them, something stronger burned, a bond forged in hunger, danger, and trust. A bond stronger than fear. And as the shadows of the soldiers drew near, the girl realized one truth. She was no longer alone. The tunnel shook with the sound of boots. The boy and the alien girl pressed against the cold wall, their hands locked together. The soldiers' lights drew closer, bright white beams cutting through the dark. There was no place left to run. The boy's breath came fast. He looked at her, his face pale but his eyes fierce. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The alien girl's chest ached. He was only a boy, thin and starving, armed with nothing but courage. Against soldiers in black armor, he was nothing. And yet he stepped forward, shielding her with his body. The soldiers stormed into the chamber, rifles raised. Their helmets glowed red, their voices cold. "There," target confirmed. "The alien," the girl gasped. She tried to pull back, but the boy held her hand tight. He shouted, his voice breaking, "Run!" He shoved her toward the shadows. But before she could move, the soldiers surrounded them. Metal arms grabbed the boy, dragging him down. He kicked, punched, bit, but they were stronger. They slammed him against the wall, rifles pressed to his chest. The girl screamed. Her glowing eyes filled with terror as they pulled her away from him. "Hold her. She's the one." A soldier barked. The boy struggled. His lip bled, his face bruised, but still he fought. "Let her go." The girl cried out, thrashing against armored hands. "No, no!" Her voice cracked, filled with fear and something deeper. The commander stepped forward, his black armor shining in the light. He studied the girl like she was nothing more than prey. "So the last royal blood. The Empire will finally end your line tonight." The boy's eyes burned. "You won't touch her." The soldiers laughed. One struck him across the face, knocking him to the ground. Blood dripped from his mouth, but he pushed himself up again, trembling, refusing to stay down. The girl's throat tightened. Her hands shook, her voice weak. "Stop, don't hurt!" But the soldiers only sneered. The alien pleads for the human? Pathetic, the boy spat blood, glaring at them. "She's not pathetic. She's worth more than all of you." The soldiers raised their rifles. The girl's heart froze. She pulled against their grip, desperate, but they held her fast. The boy stood tall, battered but unbroken, his eyes blazing, and then he moved. With a sudden burst, he slammed into one soldier, grabbing the rifle. The weapon fired, sparks exploding. Chaos filled the chamber. Shouts, gunfire, smoke. The girl dropped to the floor as the grip on her arm loosened. She crawled toward him, her body trembling. The boy swung the rifle wildly, firing at the ground, at the walls, forcing the soldiers back. His aim was clumsy, but his courage was sharp. He shouted, his voice echoing through the tunnel. "Run, princess, run!" The word struck her heart. Princess. He had called her that not as a joke, not as a story, but as truth. He was fighting for her as if she truly was one. Tears filled her eyes. She did not run. She grabbed his arm, pulling him as the soldiers advanced again. "No, together!" The boy's chest heaved. His body shook. He was covered in cuts and bruises, but he looked at her and smiled, even in the middle of fire and fear. Then together, the soldiers regrouped, their rifles aimed. The boy raised the stolen weapon, standing in front of her again. He looked small against them, but he stood tall. "Protect her!" He shouted at no one, at the darkness, at the stars above. "If this is the end, then let it mean something." Bullets thundered. The chamber filled with smoke and sparks. The boy fought with everything he had, every punch, every shot, every scream. He was not just a starving child anymore. He was a wall, a shield, a last stand. The girl, trembling, found strength in his fire. She picked up a broken metal pipe and swung it, striking one soldier's arm. She screamed with all her pain, all her loss, all her anger. For the first time since the war, she fought back. Together, side by side, they pushed the soldiers back, but they could not win forever. More boots thundered down the tunnel. More lights cut through the smoke. The boy's breath was ragged. His arms shook. He dropped the rifle. It was empty now. He looked at her, his face pale, his body broken, yet his eyes still burned. "You have to live," he whispered. Her eyes widened. "No, not without you." He smiled weakly. "You're not alone anymore. Even if I fall, you'll carry me with you." The words pierced her heart. She wanted to scream, to hold him, to never let go. But the soldiers were coming. Time was gone. With the last of his strength, the boy shoved her toward a small crack in the wall, a path narrow enough for her but too small for soldiers. "Go!" Tears streamed down her face. "I can't." "You can," he whispered. His voice shook, but it carried steel. "You must," the soldiers charged. The boy turned, his arms wide, his body the barrier between her and death. His last stand, his human heart burning brighter than fear. The alien girl crawled through the crack, her tears falling onto the cold stone. Behind her, the sounds of shouting, gunfire, and her friend's cry filled the tunnel. And then, silence. She stumbled out into the night, broken, trembling, her heart shattered. She looked back once at the crack in the wall, at the darkness where he had stood. He had fought for her. He had given everything. And she whispered through her tears, "Not the end. I promise." The alien girl ran until her legs could no longer carry her. She stumbled through the ruins, tears blinding her eyes, her chest burning with every breath. Behind her, the tunnel was silent, but that silence was heavy. It carried the weight of sacrifice. The boy had stood against the Empire for her. He had fought with nothing but his hands, his courage, and his heart. And now she did not know if he still breathed. She fell to her knees under the open sky. The stars above were distant, cold. Once her people had sung to them. Once she had been told the stars would always guide her. Now they only reminded her how far from home she was. Her hands trembled. She pressed them to her chest. His last words echoed in her mind. "You must live," she wanted to scream. She wanted to run back into the tunnel. But she knew, if she returned, they would catch her and his sacrifice would mean nothing. The night stretched on. She hid among broken walls, waiting, listening. Soldiers searched the ruins, their shouts rising and falling like the growl of wolves. Drones swept the ground with red eyes. But she stayed hidden, silent as stone. At dawn, she moved again. The boy had told her once about an old shipyard outside the city, a place where machines rusted and ships lay forgotten. He had whispered it might hold a way out. Her feet bled as she walked, but she did not stop. She followed the cracked roads past burned towers and shattered bridges until she saw it. The shipyard. The gates were broken, the ground littered with twisted metal. But among the ruins, hidden beneath dust and vines, a ship waited. Small, battered, but whole. Her breath caught. Her heart pounded. Could this be real? Could this be her escape? She climbed inside. The air smelled of rust, but the controls flickered when she touched them. The ship was old but alive. Her people's technology was woven into its heart. She understood it. Her bloodline carried the knowledge. As the engines hummed weakly, her glowing eyes filled with tears. She had a chance to live, a chance to carry her people's story forward. But then, her thoughts turned to him. The boy, his smile, his laughter, his hand in hers. His last stand. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. "I can't leave you," she whispered. Her body shook with grief. She almost shut the ship down, almost chose to stay and wait for death, but then she heard it, a sound, faint, weak, but real. Footsteps. Her head snapped up. At the edge of the shipyard, a figure stumbled forward. His clothes were torn, his face bruised, blood staining his shirt, but his eyes still burned. The boy. She gasped. Her heart leapt. She ran to him, catching him before he fell. His body was heavy but alive. His voice was rough, broken. "Told you." Together. Tears streamed down her face. She held him close, her whole body shaking. For a moment, the stars above seemed brighter. She pulled him into the ship. He collapsed into the seat, barely able to lift his head. But he smiled, weak and true. "Go! Leave this place!" Her hands trembled on the controls. "With you?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No, this is your fight. Your people. You must live for them." Her chest ached. "You saved me." "I save you." His eyes softened. He reached for her hand, his grip weak but steady. "Maybe I can't go where you're going. But even if I stay here, even if I fall, you'll carry me. In you I'll still rise." Her tears fell like rain. She wanted to fight him, to refuse. But deep inside, she knew he spoke truth. The engines roared louder. The ship trembled, ready to fly. Outside, soldiers shouted, racing into the shipyard. Bullets struck the hull, sparks flying. Drones swarmed above. The boy looked at her one last time. His voice was a whisper, but it carried fire. "Show them. Show them humans can protect, not just destroy. Show them what hope looks like." The alien girl's heart blazed. She pressed her lips to his forehead, then took the controls. The ship lifted, shaking the ground. Soldiers fired, drones screamed, but the engines burned brighter, carrying her into the sky. The city fell away beneath her. The stars opened above. She looked down one last time. The boy was still there, his figure small but unbroken, standing in the ruins like a knight who had fought dragons. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the stars, "I will return. I will not forget. You are my knight." The ship soared higher, past the smoke, past the ruins, into the endless sky. For the first time since the war, she felt something new. Not just survival, not just escape, hope. And as the stars welcomed her, she carried with her the memory of one human heart, a heart that had chosen to protect an alien girl, a heart that had turned a starving child into a princess in the stars.